Someone sent me a DM a couple days ago that I found pretty interesting, and I think, no, I know I've done at least one or two videos on this subject about how Miss Lisa. Yeah, it had to do with the whole, no, Zach owes Fatima because if it wasn't for her, he would have never made the stock win that, he got after putting his money on that, stock that, the senator's wife gave him. And I said, well, because I remember having an argument with a fan about, well, Fatima was the one that made, because Zach, he did go to Chain Breakers, but he wasn't going to sign the paperwork until Fatima forced him to do it. So I'm like, yeah, but honestly, you need to take it a step back further, because Miss Lisa was the one that introduced Zach to her boyfriend, Chris or Christopher, who is the mastermind behind Chain Breakers in the first place. So after telling Zach about Chain Breakers, that's what led to him actually going to the meeting. Now, the point of the post or the message I was sent was that, Karen, do you think she'll be mad at her mom? Because honestly, when you think about it, if it wasn't for Miss Lisa, then Zach wouldn't have met Fatima in the first place. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually pretty wild to think about. It just goes back to the whole idea of you making one decision can change an entire lifetime of circumstances. Like, let's say you decide not to go to the grocery store because maybe it's too hot outside. Well, because you didn't choose to go to, I don't know, Food Line on that particular day, you didn't accidentally bump your shopping cart into someone else's shopping cart, and that could have been your soulmate. That's really trippy to think about. So when you look at the circumstances behind Miss Lisa visiting Zach over at Danny's house, honestly, it kind of felt like she only wanted to quote unquote help Zach because she didn't like Aaron. And it's like, Zach, get your shit together. That way my daughter will pick you over the accountant because he's really sketchy. So either way, you could debate that Miss Lisa is responsible for Zach meeting Fatima. But I'll take it a step further though. Yes, she introduced him to Christopher, and Christopher was the one that told him about Chain Breakers and to come to the next meeting. Now you gotta look at the circumstances of what went down prior to the meeting. Zach was at Karen's house cleaning up his own blood off the floor. Aaron had come over to get Karen some clothing because I think at the time she was staying over at Sabrina's, if I remember correctly, which also I think Andy was as well because of her whole, hey, the government seized my apartment and all my assets because of Gary. But regardless, she just needed to change the clothes. And they both went over to Sabrina's, all ladies in attendance. And Karen picked Aaron in front of everybody. She chose Aaron. She was done with Zach. And that's something I wish more of the characters would bring up. It's like, hey, Karen, I know you are still feeling Zach, but remember, you chose Aaron in front of all of us. And this was before he even got with Fatima, but nobody wants to talk about that. But they'll keep talking about, well, Zach gave you an STD, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, you got to look at Zach's mind state. He was pissed off, and I believe him and Danny left at the same time. And from there, he was heartbroken. He was just riding his little bicycle across the parking lot, and that's when Fatima hit him because he was so distracted he wasn't looking where he was going because his mind was just in a fog because of Karen, and he was just trying to get to this meeting because it's like, okay, I don't have Karen, I guess. Well, if nothing else, let me just go to this chain breaker meeting so I can try to get my life together. And then, bam, got hit by Fatima, and that's that. What if Karen had chosen Zach at that moment, and then they both went back to her place? Now, you could possibly argue that if Karen had chosen Zach, and they got back together because they tended to do that, break up and make up, I think it is quite possible that if these two got back together and opted to go back to Karen's house or wherever, Zach may have not gone to the meeting because let's say, well, then again, he was still injured from getting stabbed. So I don't know if they would have had crazy sex, but then again, adrenaline and hormones, I don't know, Zach probably would have powered on through. these two would have worn each other's asses out. He would have missed the meeting and then never met Fatima at that specific time. So I think it is quite plausible that Karen is actually the one most responsible for Zach meeting Fatima, because one, she chose Aaron, and then Zach just opted to go to the meeting. Like I said, if she had chosen Zach, they probably would have went back to her place, and that would have been that. Maybe, chain breakers would have happened down the line because Miss Elisa would have called, Zach, Chris told me he didn't show up to the meeting. Well, yeah. I'm sorry, Miss Elisa. I was going, but me and your daughter made up. And it's like, well, hey, you go to the next one. So I feel like they, he would have eventually went. But if he and Karen were still a thing at the time, I don't think the Fatima thing would have happened the way it did. So even though Karen could possibly be mad at her mom for the whole Fatima thing, at the end of the day, she's the most responsible, not just because of my hypothetical, what if she had chose Zach instead of Aaron at that moment. She was also the one that broke up with Zach in advance regardless, so he was still, available, and that's what happened. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video.